Hi, welcome back to Potential's Place. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is my second YouTube video, and again, I'm excited to be here with you. This is another video on encouragement. For those who did not see the first video, I am a certified personal and executive coach and have had this channel for a while, but I've just not really done anything with it. And in this season that we're in, I felt compelled to begin to upload videos. And this first series is really just going to be about offering words of encouragement at a time when a lot of people are feeling discouraged because of being on lockdown in their homes, because of the pandemic that is going on with regard to the coronavirus and so forth. So, this video, as you see from the title, is about pruning, and it surrounds a lesson, one of many lessons that I learned as a result of gardening. And I love, 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 love gardening. I'll tell you sometime later about how much I didn't love gardening when I was growing up and how that transitioned. But today's story is about a knockout rose bush that I had in my yard. Actually, it's about a couple of knockout rose bushes that I had planted in my yard a few years ago. And I'd gone online and researched what to do with them, how to prune them, how to nourish them, water them, and so forth. And so I was doing everything as I understood it needed to be done. And over time, I noticed that the rose bushes were not producing foliage, they were not producing blooms like they had. And I was still pruning and still watering and still fertilizing and doing all of those things, but the blooms were becoming minimal. And there were branches that were really dead, like you could break them and they were just so dry that they would just snap. They wouldn't bend, they would just snap. So finally, I thought, okay, it's dead. Well, both of them, they're dead. So I will dig them up and replace them with new, fresh ones. So the one bush I dug up, my son and I got in the yard and we got that shovel and we dug it up. It was hard too because the roots had expanded and we just dug and dug and dug until finally I snapped those roots and got them out. And I threw that basically root bulb away. The other one, it took so much work to get to dig the one up by the root that I didn't have the energy, or maybe it was late because a lot of times I would garden in the evening at that time. And so it might have been late and just time to go inside. I don't remember, but I just know that I didn't do the other knockout rose bush that was there were three that I had planted, and two of them were looking really pitiful. And so I had decided that I would go back and at some point get one of the other ones and dig it up as well, but I just hadn't done it yet. And somebody came by and was in the yard and I get and cut that rose bush all the way down to the ground. And when I saw that it was cut, I wasn't really pleased with it because I wanted to dig it up. And the difficulty that we had in digging up the first one was made a little bit easier because the part that was above the ground was still we could grab like while I was digging the shovel and trying to snap the roots, my son was able to grab the part that was up the ground and pull it out. So I thought, boy, oh boy, you know, I didn't want it cut. I wanted it to be dug up. And I didn't dig it up that right away. I just left it, went back sometime thereafter and saw these little green things shooting up, bright green leaves that were growing in the ground. And I looked and I was like, well, what in the world is this? And I thought, is this plant growing leaves? I mean, not the plant, but the trunk. Is it growing leaves? And I just left it and let it grow and let it grow. And ultimately, what I realized is that new shoots were coming up, that the plant wasn't actually dead. The part above ground was but the part beneath the ground, the most important part, the root system, was still very much alive. And what I realized was that I wasn't pruning that plant enough. Although I was taking off some leaves here and there and pruning and doing what I thought was enough, it wasn't enough. I wasn't cutting it back enough. And so what was happening was all of this life and all of this potential that was in the root of the plant was not able to get through because what was dead was on top. What was dead and what was dying was on top, blocking the ability of the fullness of that plant, the full potential that was in that plant to be seen, to be realized. And when it was cut back, just whacked all the way back, then that freed up all of the energy that was being blocked by what was dead to come forth. And those beautiful bright green leaves started springing forth. And that plant regenerated. It was amazing to me. And the life lesson that I got out of that was that there are times that we will go through situations in life that will be very painful. But those painful periods are pruning processes. Yes, they're opportunities, as I talked about yesterday. This period where we are on stay at home orders, or in some states, you might even be on shelter in place orders. I talked yesterday about how it's an opportunity. But for many, it might feel like a pruning. It might feel very painful, very difficult, very unwanted. But I want to encourage you to embrace the pruning process because there is more in you. No matter what you were doing before coronavirus became a global pandemic, no matter how successful you were, there's greater in you. There's still more that needs to come forth. And maybe the pathway that you were on seemed great and wonderful and perfectly suited for you, but maybe there's something additional that you need to move into, some other area that you need to move into, and now's the time to move. And you wouldn't have been able to see that or realize it. It would not have been able to come forth because things that still had some life in them, but that were dying, even if you didn't realize they were dying, were blocking the ability of that other idea, that additional greatness, that awesomeness, the potential in you, was they were blocking it from coming forth. So now that that pruning process has taken place and is taking place, and all of this other stuff is being cut away, now more can come forth, right? It just springs forth. I'm thinking now about a story that I heard. There's a woman, an author, and she was a speaker. I don't know if she still travels around and speaks, but PB Wilson is her name, and she wrote a book called Knight in Shining Armor that I just loved early in my single life. At any rate, I had the opportunity years ago to hear a message that PB delivered, and in the message, she told the story of this little rose bush in a garden that just kind of reminds me of what I experienced a few years ago in real life in my literal physical garden. And in this story, this is what PB said, that there was a little bitty rose bush and a great large older rose bush that were side by side. And the little rose bush was just enjoying being a rose bush, was enjoying blooms that were coming out and the joy that that his beauty brought to people as they walked by and admired the beauty of all of the roses. And the little rose bush was so happy and content. And then one day, the little rose bush heard other bushes crying out in pain. And he looked down to see what was going on. And he saw the gardener who had tended to the rose bushes with such love, such care, such concern, such compassion, doing something he'd never seen before. He was chopping back those rose bushes, and it was a painful process. And the little rose bush became so afraid. And he asked the older, larger bush, "What's going on? Why is he doing that? Why is he cutting back those bushes?" And the large rose bush said, It's okay. It needs to happen. He knows what he's doing. And the little rosebush just couldn't understand why this would be needed, why so much pain would be necessary, and how it could possibly be good when there was already so much beauty among them. And the older rosebush said to the little rosebush, "When the gardener comes by, you lift your branches high and you let him prune you. Because if he doesn't prune, what he knows that you don't know is that if he doesn't prune you, then there will be fungus and other diseases that will grow under your leaves that you won't be aware of and that others who walk by can't see, but that he knows if he doesn't prune, that they will cause a problem later on. If he doesn't prune, the fullness of the potential that is in you will not be able to be realized. So when that gardener who seems to be doing such a terrible thing right now comes to you, you lift your little branches high and you let him prune you." So the gardener continued down the row, cutting back, and the little rosebush heard the cries of the other bushes, the painful cries as they were being pruned. And when the gardener got to the little rosebush, he lifted his little branches high and he said, "Precious gardener, I am willing." We've got to be willing to be pruned. It doesn't feel good in the moment. If you're one who's lost your job right now, that doesn't feel good. If you're one who's trying to work your job from home and homeschool your children and everybody's cooped up inside, it doesn't feel good. But this pruning process, if we're willing to tap into the opportunities that are presented to us in this season, this pruning process will cut away all of the things that need to be cut away so that the beauty of the fullness that is in us will have an opportunity to spring forth. Be encouraged, even in your pain, even in your uncertainty. Be encouraged. This too shall pass. Be determined to emerge better and not bitter. Might have a few battle scars through the process. Many of us might. But at the end of the day, if we emerge better and not bitter, then wasn't it worth it? Don't stay in this place unwilling to be pruned. And then when all of this is over, end up with dead wood that is keeping the beauty of you from being able to show up in the world in the way that it's supposed to. Pruning hurts, but in this lesson from the garden, what I learned is that it is absolutely necessary. And as the title of this video says, the yield is wonderful. Let your pruning take place.